you would turn to 1 Peter chapter 3, reading from verse 1. Wives, in the same way, be submissive to your husbands, so that they, if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of the wives, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. Your beauty should not come from outward adornments, such as braided hair and the wearing of gold jewelry and fine clothes. Instead, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle, quiet spirit, which is of a great worth in God's sight. For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to make themselves beautiful. They were submissive to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him master. Your daughters, you are her daughters, if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for today and our blessings. We thank you for the opportunity to study your word. We pray that you'll be with us as we do so and help us to apply it in our lives. In your son's name. All right. We're continuing our study of individuals who have minor references in the Bible. A lot of times we say minor characters, but there is no minor character. If you're in the Bible, you're important. And there are individuals who've done something that were worthy of note in reality. Last week we took a look at Joseph of Arimathea, and we saw how he was a rich and prominent member of the Sanhedrin court, how he was a sincere Pharisee that was waiting for God. You know, Pharisees, that was their whole goal when the sect was originally originated, and he appears to be one of them that was sincerely looking for God, in comparison to some of the others who were really looking for kind of the person they wanted to be that person. He was a disciple of Christ, even if he wasn't a day-to-day follower. We discussed John's reference to the term secret and how that may or may not apply. But at a minimum, he didn't follow him around like John did day to day. It says he was a good and just man who did not consent to the execution of Jesus, even though he was on the court that convicted him. We see that he buried him in his tomb. And that was the significant event that this one minor reference in the Bible to this individual did. But it was significant in that without him, there would not have been a burial. And without a burial, there would have been a resurrection. So it's important to remember that one little insignificant thing always has an impact. Today we're going to take a look at Dorcas. Dorcas is taken from Acts chapter 2, verses 32 through 35. Hopefully you read it before you came here. I chose not to read it. Instead, I chose to read something else that Peter wrote in 1 Peter. When we look at Dorcas, we want to find out, okay, who is Dorcas and why is she significant that was mentioned in the Bible? First of all, with a little setting here, we're in basically the, the 9th chapter of Acts. And in the 9th chapter of Acts, we find that several things have taken place. First of all, if you remember, the church has been scattered because Saul had done what? Persecution. Matter of fact, stoning of Stephen kind of kicked it off in full bloom. And he'd been persecuting the church and going out. And because of the persecution of the church, we find that these Jewish Christians did what? Dispersed. They had gone away from Jerusalem, where all this was going on. They scattered throughout the countryside of the smaller towns throughout Judea, Samaria, and even in Galilee and these places around here. They were considered an insurrectionist. Keep in mind, when Jesus was crucified, the charge against him, the Jews, was blasphemy. But they couldn't do anything about it unless they made it into something that the Romans were executing. So they made it into insurrection. Basically, he was starting an uprising. That's what they said. And the Sadducees, who worried about their livelihood, had him executed because they were afraid of this trouble and this unrest would cause a problem for them, and the Romans would crack down on them. So they just carried it out one step further. They sent Paul out with letters basically to crush this, what they considered an insurrection, or at least that's the way they wrote it off to the Roman government, these bunch of rabble-rousers. So that's what Saul had done. So he was out trying to put this down. And they had been dispersed, and so the church had spread, and wherever two or more are gathered together, you have the church. So suddenly you have the church scattered throughout the country there, instead of just being in Jerusalem. As this takes place, we find that shortly thereafter, in the writings or whatever of Acts, that Saul gets a wake-up call. Wake-up call on the way to Damascus, and he finds out real quick that he's on the wrong side of the fence. And because of that, we see he's converted, and then he comes back to Jerusalem, and while he's in Jerusalem, he works with the apostles, and they teach and spend some time with him. And then, when the Jews that he had been on their side before realized he's on that side, they kind of went out after him. Because now all of a sudden we got somebody that's actually turned to the other side and it's making it even worse. So because of that, they sent Saul away. Sent him back to home, where his dad, to Tarsus, to that territory where he's from. So as this takes place, we see that that's kind of the setting for the beginning of or middle of chapter 9. We start with verse 32. Verse 32, we find that Peter traveled about the country. What was Peter traveling about the country about?
Staying in the churches.
Staying in the churches. He went to visit and meet with the churches. They were no longer in a place where he could work with in Jerusalem. They were scattered about. So it says that he traveled about the country. He went to visit the saints. Specifically, verse 32 tells us that was what he was doing. He went to visit them, to encourage them, lift them up. So his first stop he went to is a place called Lydda. Lydda is a town on our map. Jerusalem's here. That's slightly north, but mostly west, toward the coast. Okay? Get over to Lydda, and he goes over there to the church of Lydda. While he's there, the Bible says that he heals a paralytic. Someone who's been unable to walk for, I think it was 8 years. But he was bedridden. The Bible says he healed him, a guy named, I can't pronounce it, Aeneas, or something like that. Been ridden, and Peter tells him that Jesus heals him to stand up and walk, and he does. So he starts walking and everything. And the result was what? Many in the area turned to Christ. Many in the area turned to Christ. So we see Peter goes out, he visits the church, he heals somebody, and as a result of the healing, many are turned. That's significant, because as we go into these next verses, it helps us to understand what's going on. So that while he's there, then we find that in a town nearby is a place called Joppa. The church there, the disciples at Joppa, they call him up and tell him to come to Joppa. Now, what do we know about Joppa? It's a seaport. It's a famous seaport. It's been a seaport way back to David and Solomon's time. The writer here talks about the different things that came in under Solomon when he was building the temple, and there's lots of things. I think that's where Jonah took off from. There's a lot of different events because it was pretty much one of the main seaports of Israel. It was closest to Jerusalem. It was about, I think it was like 38 miles from Jerusalem, due west, pretty much due west on the coast. Where is it today? Have I ever heard of Tel Aviv? Isn't that the major seaport of Israel today? Yeah. Basically, Joppa is within the large city of Tel Aviv, which encompasses Joppa and a bunch of other smaller communities. It's one of those communities that are part of it. So we see that. And when I started looking at it, it started making me think about it, something. When you think about Israel and how big it is, from Jerusalem to the seacoast is 38 miles. You know how far it is, Chattanooga? 35. All right, let's say go to the mall, ladies. 38 miles. That's the seaport. That's to the western extreme part of the country. You go to the east, to Jericho, it's even less. It's even closer. So what are we looking at? 50, 60 miles across? Think about it. Nashville is farther than the width of Israel. And all the turmoil in this country, in this world over that area is about this place that's not even as big as East Tennessee, hardly. Anyway, just a quick note. I got to thinking about it. All right, so as we look at this and we start looking at that, and we go to the disciples send for Peter. They call him to come over there, and we find that they come over and they find that Dorcas, whose other name is Tabitha. I don't remember which is which. One is Hebrew, one is Greek, and one is Aramaic, or something like that. Both of them basically mean the same thing, gazelle. Anyway, this lady named Dorcas had died, and it was significant because she had a ministry there. What was her ministry in Joppa? She made clothes for who? Everybody. The poor, it says, but specifically the ones that he was talking about were widows. Now we know from our studies and discussions about widows and everything that being a widow is like a death knell. Basically means poverty because there is no way to, you don't own anything. And that took the time. They didn't own anything. They didn't have anything. Without their husband, there was no livelihood. We think back about Boaz and Ruth and the situation there and how that. And so the people that were the most at risk in society, most of the time, were widows. Women whose husband had died, and specifically those, as Paul describes, who has no other family to take care of, or what he calls widows indeed. Okay, so we find that her primary ministry to the widows, or the poor and the helpless. As a matter of fact, James tells us that pure religion is to what? Look after the orphans and the widows in their distress. That's what pure religion is. That's exactly what she was doing, was living her life in pure religion. She was looking after those who could not take care of themselves. She says she made clothing. Why is that important? Didn't have to go to Walmart. This is true. If they did, they didn't have the money to go to Walmart. Clothing is a basic need. A basic need. As a matter of fact, who was the first clothing maker in the Bible? God. Genesis chapter 3, the very first thing he did, when man came in, man had a need. God provided. This is exactly what she's doing. No difference. She's providing the basic need that they all needed that was very significant. All right? And when we look at this and we look at her life, I think of this, and Peter comes in there, and we comes into Dorcas. I think when Peter writes 1 Peter chapter 3, Dorcas is one of the women that was in his mind when he was writing this description about women. Okay? And how they minister. And that's why I chose to read chapter 3. When we look at that 1 Peter chapter 3, it tells us several different things. First of all, that when people see you, their husbands specifically in this context, but specifically others, when they see your purity and reverence of your lives. So when he describes a woman trying to make an impact, one of the most important things is the purity and the reverence of their life. How they can make an impact and a change on the people around them. That was significant to her ministry. Your beauty should not come from outward, but it should be that of your inner self. The unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. That's another description of the way a person, in this context, a woman can be in a way that she would influence those around her. Which in doing so, first of all, is greater worth in God's sight. Sometimes we place the value in whose sight? Our sight. He's saying if you want value, get it this way in God's sight. Okay? And in doing so, you will win over without words by your behavior. That's exactly a description of Dorcas. That's what she had done, and the impact she had made to those around her. the impact was to this church, to these people. They could see her and what she did, and in doing so, she had won them over by her behavior. Now, men, just in case you think that's just for women, even though that was directed to them, I went ahead and read one more verse in 1 Peter, verse 7. Husbands in the same way. I like it that way, because Paul and Peter and all of them, every time they say, wives, be submissive, they always say, husbands, you too. It's just different. In the same way, but different. That's it. Only difference. Matter of fact, when Paul talks about submission, I think it's interesting. He starts it off by saying, be submissive to each other, before he ever says the first word about wives being in submission to their husbands. Because submission is about giving up of yourself. And it's significant as Christians that's important. So we see this, we see Dorcas. This is this lifestyle. This is the way she influenced the people, what she did in order to do that. And the church there thought the world of her. To the point that after she died, they wanted Peter, the great Peter, to come over to them. They didn't ask him to come over and raise him from the dead. They just wanted him to be there with them. What was he out doing? Visiting the churches. So they wanted him to be there and to show that this great woman and what all she had done and the respect they had for her. Okay. Well, we go on in verse 37 and it tells us that she became sick and died. And all the widows stood around crying. Why were they crying? They're Christians. Why were they crying? Do what? They were sad. So wait a minute. Dorcas has gone to a better place. Dorcas is going to heaven. She's going to be resurrected. Why were they sad? They were grieving. They had mourning. There was sadness because of their loss. Not because of her loss. But she was getting something great, but it was a sadness because of their loss. And whenever that affects us in our lives, it should be the same way. It has to do with loss. And loss, no matter how we understand that God is with us, and no matter how we understand that sometimes they're in a better place and that they're going to heaven, there's no more tears, no more pain, all these great things. Paul himself said, it's better by far to be gone, It still hurts us. And the example I think of goes straight back to what Peter would have understood very well too. You remember the one time, the shortest verse in the Bible? Jesus wept. Who was there? Peter. He watched as Mary and Martha came up and their dear friend Lazarus, Jesus' dear friend Lazarus, died. And Mary and Martha were torn up in so much pain. They understood Jesus had said about resurrection. You can read that from the conversation. They understood that in the next life he would be better. That still didn't replace the pain they felt. And Jesus, even knowing everything that he did, still wept with them. That's just kind of a common thing. So we find that as Peter comes across this, he deals with this, and he realizes that death brings loss and grief, even when you know the outcome. Put a note there that he did this. He came into the situation knowing this, even though he knew that death was really only sleeping. As a matter of fact, Jesus himself, amongst others, made reference to Lazarus, that he was just only sleeping. He knew that. It was sleep, which means it's temporary, it's not permanent. Even though most of mankind feel like death is the end. And for many it is. Okay, so we find in the next few verses in verse 40 that she's raised from the dead. The way he does that, I think, is interesting. Peter does what? What does he tell them to do? Leave the room. Leave the room. Many, many miracles are in front of everybody. But this one here, he tells them to leave the room. The writer points out, and it makes very much sense, that Jesus did the exact same thing. You remember when he raised Jairus' daughter? Exact same thing. He told everybody to leave the room. So it was a private moment. And so he pretty much follows that same example. We find that Peter then, after everybody leaves the room, says he kneels and prays. And then he tells Tabitha, get up. Isn't that what Jesus told Jairus' daughter? Get up. Wake up. And so we find that she opens her eyes and sits up. And then we find that Peter takes her by the hand and calls all the believers together and presents her to them alive. Now, that's a miraculous event in and of itself, as we know. And that's a significant event that would be important to show the power that the apostles had, in one sense. But it doesn't stop there. What does the next verse say? Verse 42. This became known all over Joppa. And what happened? Many people believed. We had an instance in Lydda. Now we have an instance in Joppa. In all these cases, Peter comes and does something miraculous, something that cannot be done except through Jesus, his power. He comes and does it, and the end result is that many people hear and many people believe in both cases. This is another example how a gift, and in classes I've taught the difference between the gift of the Spirit and the gift from the Spirit. This is another example of how the gift from the Spirit of God confirmed the truth that Jesus Christ is who he says he was. It's just another example of it. And time after time, you will always find examples of this. Even Jesus himself said that the miracles are evidence that he is who he says he is, and what he says is true. In John chapter 14, he also tells those same apostles that they will do the same things he does in order to confirm or to provide that same evidence. So a lot of times we have some confusion exactly on what's going on there or whatever. So when we look at Dorcas or Tabitha, the question I ask is, why is she in the Bible? Why is she in the Bible as a minor individual, a minor reference? The first one, I think, is to demonstrate right here that Jesus was in fact who he says he was, and even his apostles confirmed it. And that's how the church grew. The next thing, I think, is to demonstrate the influence she had from her life because of her actions. Because of those two things, I think that's why Luke included her when he writes this particular book. Okay, as we start looking at this and we start looking at some of the applications of whatever, the first one is to look at his miracles. Today we have people who claim to be able to perform miracles. The reality in the New Testament, every single example was done as a sign. A sign, and it was not about a benefit. You understand what I mean by that? It was a sign to prove something, the validity of what a person was doing or saying. It was not done in order to benefit somebody, to make them, just to make them well. An example of that is, remember Paul? Did he have a thorn in his flesh? He had something that he begged Christ to remove. If he could perform miracles and just wanted to, why didn't he just get rid of it? Because it's not about the miracle and the benefit. It's really about the sign that demonstrates the power of Jesus in this particular case or any other case. So when we start trying to evaluate things today, we need to keep that in mind. The result was that many believed. Jesus himself, he could have called to use those miracles for his own benefit, but he didn't. Instead, when he used miracles, almost always it was not just to benefit the person, but it was to primarily to demonstrate to those around that he was from God, as an evidence, as he says in John chapter 14 and other places. Okay? Today, when we look at some people who claim to have miracles, almost always you have to have enough faith. You ever noticed that Tabitha didn't have any faith? She was dead. We look at some of the miracles that Jesus did, and sometimes he just picked a person out at random and just said, "You want to walk? Get up and walk." Guy had no clue who he was. Remember that? It wasn't always about a person's faith, but it was always about Christ and God, trying to demonstrate that Jesus was, in fact, who he said he was. The other thing to think about is this. Today, those that claim to be able to perform miracles, I've never seen one of them raise the dead. Peter did. Jesus did. They didn't raise everybody. But they did the ones that they wanted to, specifically to show that they were from God, and they had a specific purpose behind it, as a sign. But nobody today does. I often think, and somebody was talking to me about this the other day, about performing miracles and whatever, and I said, I know I know many good brothers and sisters who have been enduring all kinds of illness, sickness, pain, troubles, things like that, that are good, devout people, people who go and preach, who have plenty of faith, who have all those things. But not one person has been made to walk again, or be able to see, never blind. Not one of them has had suddenly miraculously the cancer removed. A lot of times we pray that God will intervene and things happen on his behalf, where he makes things happen. But not because somebody comes up and I touch them or whatever and say, okay, stand up and walk. You know, or give them back a limb, or do some things that really prove it. And that's the situation we face today. We see. As we know in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, basically it says that it demonstrated, Paul tells us that the purpose for these gifts from the Spirit were only there for a basic purpose. And that was because everything was not complete. God's Logos, which included his Word, and all that was not complete. And until it was done, that's what their basic purpose was. They didn't have a Bible to look at to say, is this what God said? And so it was used in that case. And then Paul tells us that when that time comes, all this will stop. Except for what? Faith, love, hope. Yeah. And the greatest is love. Because that is what God is. It encompasses all of us. All right. So we look at that, we kind of think about that. We need to keep that in mind, what that is all about. What the Bible really talks about when it talks about Jesus performing these miracles with his disciples. All right, next thing I want to think about is this. Christianity is all about what? What's our life all about? Say that? What? Serving God by serving man. As a matter of fact, in Matthew chapter 20, I believe it is, verses 25 and 28, Jesus talks about, in verse 28, he says, I did not come to be served. I think that's verse 27. Jesus said, he came in order to serve man and to give his life a ransom for many. A few verses before that, verse 25, he was telling his disciples it was their job to go out and serve, just like he. And he tells whatever. So his whole mission when he came here was to serve us. And when I look at that, I see he said serve and then give life, as basically service in life and service in death. And he's asking us to do the same thing. Paul talks about it in Philippians chapter 2. It's written all over the New Testament talking about that that's what we're to do. As a matter of fact, John tells us in 1 John chapter 3, 18, if you want to show somebody love, there's only one way to do it. How's that? By your actions. What you do. Talk is cheap. 1 John's all about that. It says, quit saying you love your brother. Show him you love him. Do something about it. That's what he's trying to demonstrate in 1 John chapter 1. It's all about what you do that shows what that love is. A lot of times we think that, we've got to be a preacher or do some great thing or whatever. We got to do this in order to be a good Christian and go to heaven. It's interesting, the Bible never ever says that. As a matter of fact, anything says that our salvation comes from not what we do, but instead from what Christ did, what God does, what he does for us, not what we do. You know, and then of course some people use that excuse to not do anything, but that doesn't take that out. Because God said if I do it for you, what are you supposed to do for me? That same thing. It tells us that. So but a lot of times we look at that. I think it's in Acts chapter 17, verses 24 and 25. Basically, I think Paul speaking, that says that God doesn't need anything from us. We don't do it because our actions. We don't do the things we do because He wants us, or He needs it. We do it because we want to. He wants us to, as a response to Him. Like Dorcas, we're required to influence our corner of the world, whatever that may be. Every one of us has a different arena of influence. We talked about that when we talked about mission work and everything. You know, we're talking about going to all the world. Well, all the world can be, where's your world? You know, if your world is in a little corner in Kimball, that's where you need to be. You don't have to be going to Pennsylvania or Afghanistan or wherever in the other places in the world. If that's where your corner of the world is that you can influence, just like Tabitha's, what was her corner of influence? Joppa, the church there. And not only did she influence the church there, but she influenced the community around them. And then with her being brought back to life, she influenced the growth of the church. And the things she did. Okay? We're to influence our corner of the world, wherever that finds us. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 42, Jesus says, "It's just a cup of water I place in your hand." Actually, that's a song. But it comes from the verse I just mentioned. If God gives you a glass of water, what's He want you to do with it? Give it to somebody who needs a drink. If that's it, that's it. That's important. Even though man may not consider that significant or important, God does. He considers it. As a matter of fact, in Matthew chapter 25, we see the great list. If you visited me in prison, if you fed me, if you clothed me, all the different things. Not one of them said if you went around the world preaching the gospel, Paul. If you do these things in His name, then you're doing it for Him. If you're doing it for Him, He promises you eternal life. That's what He says. That's what our calling is to do, is to influence people with the abilities we have, wherever they may be, in whatever context it may be. And it may be fairly simple in the eyes of the world, but it's significant to those around. Which brings me to the last thing I want to address. Women are not second-class citizens. The great debate's been going on in this country for 20, 30, 40 years about women's rights and this and that and all that. And that's where the abortion things come from and all these different struggles that we see happen in our country come from. And it's because of a misconception. Now, men, sometimes we promote that, or have in the past. Hopefully we're not now, but it has been done. I mean, throughout history it's been that way. But there's a difference between equality and sameness. The world is pushing today saying equality is sameness. So that means a man and a woman are the same. They're not the same. In God's eyes, they're equal. They're equal. He loves us both just the same. He died for us just both the same. He asked us to serve Him both just the same. But we're not the same. We don't look like each other. It's a fact. What do they call it? Facts of life. Should have learned that back about 10 years old or 12 years old or whatever. They learn it now, you know? There is differences. Not just in physical makeup, but emotional, social, all kinds of ways. And so, in our country, we are struggling with this equality issue and trying to turn it into sameness. And so, even the issue today about which bathroom to go into, we're turning it into sameness. You can write on the wall. 20 years from now, there'll be one bathroom. Okay? Because they're pushing for sameness. That's the way it'll be. Our military just went this way. Sameness, no distinction. There is a distinction. Can they do some of the same things? Absolutely. Physically, emotionally, yes. Some they can't. That's just the way it is. But quite honestly, two men standing side by side have the same issues. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're not the same. There's a lot of people a lot stronger than I am. You know, growing up, I was the guy that would easily get whooped if I needed it. You know, so I learned to run. You know, fight or flight. Flight was good for me. Nobody could catch me. You know, you didn't see me on the line playing football, but buddy, when I was in track. The point is, sameness and equality are not the same. Too many times, our society mixes that up. And we need to be taking more time to let people understand it. And the note I have here is all people are equal, just different functions. And when I say that, I use the word all people because right now we're talking about gender, but it's the same with race. Okay? It's the same with wealth. A rich man has a different influence and ability than a poor man. And it doesn't matter whether he's a man or a woman, and it doesn't matter whether he's black or white. On the other hand, there are certain places that a black man can have an influence that I can't. Or vice versa. You know? It's just everybody is different in their own way, including male and female. And because of that, we're different, we have different opportunities, but we all have the opportunity to serve God. 100% completely. In the church, God has said, okay, I want men to be responsible for certain things. And that's okay. He put it that way for whatever reason. Now, he gives us some reasons or whatever, but we're not going into a study of that. I'm just saying that there are certain functions, certain jobs that God designated. That's okay. There's plenty of jobs for a woman. Name one guy that's gave birth. You know, God tells us very clearly that women were given that job, that responsibility. Is that a significant one? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't remember who, but I heard somebody quote some famous person or whatever in the last week or two, and they were talking about equality, and they said that ladies, you don't want to be equal because that's taking a step down or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. But basically, that women are even more superior in who they are, what they are, whatever. And by demanding this, they're basically drumming it down to where being the same as men. We need to be careful. Each of us has our own influence. No matter who we are, where we come from, what our color is, what our gender is, it doesn't matter. God has used every single person to serve Him in some way. And everybody has that ability to do something. Yesterday I was driving, Sue and I was going somewhere, and was driving, I pulled out and I saw a bumper sticker. It was on a car driven by a woman who had a bunch of notes on there, which I don't necessarily want to repeat. But this one said, "Well-behaved women seldom make history." The implication was that rowdy, whatever you do, different things or whatever, is the only way to make history. I'm sitting there thinking, making history is not always a good thing. But the world thinks that's the goal, right? Is to make history. You might remember, my wife pointed this one out. Remember Jezebel? She made history, didn't she? Is she the kind of person you want as your friend? She wasn't nice to her friends, let alone her enemies. No, she was evil. But she's the kind that makes history. Making history is not what we need to be doing, even though that's what man thinks they need to do. I want to make history. I want to be somebody. I want to be important. I want to be like George Washington or Harry Beecher Stowe or whoever in the world. You know what I mean? It's not about making history. Instead, it's about changing history. See, there's ways to change history. That doesn't mean that you made history. You know, that doesn't mean you end up on the $1 bill. People can change history in their own little corner of the world, and whatever that may be. We start talking about women, we talk about Dorcas. Look at the change she made, how the church was grown spiritually because of her life, and how the church grew physically because of her life again.
Made me think about Dorcas also in the fact that, yes, she loved the church, God's church, it was always, but she loved her church too. She provided things that people in her church need, where she met, and we have people that do that, and all of us probably should look for more ways to help people that we know in our church.
That's why that church was so crushed with her loss, because of what she did. So we look at her and look how she changes history. We look at Esther. Remember Esther in the Bible? How she changed history. Otherwise, the Jewish nation would have been wiped out. We think about Mary. Little Mary, 16-year-old girl, or however old she was, gives birth to a baby. You know, aside from Catholicism trying to make her out to be something that she's not, basically all she did was give birth and raise the Son of God. She wasn't some prominent person. She wasn't the president or whatever. She wasn't something, but she did change history. People change history based on where they're at. And when we look at 1 Peter chapter 3, that's exactly what it's talking about. When it's talking about women, and it makes reference to women, wives being able to convert their husbands. I know of specific examples of that, friends of ours today, because we ended up in a small little town, in a small little congregation, just trying to help. We were able to convert one guy who was the husband of a woman who had been working, showing him what it was like to be a Christian for 5-10 years. He was converted, and today he's now in the church. One little many years ago, 30 years ago. And then, of course, the last thing related to that is this. Everybody ever heard the term, the hand in the cradle? Rules the world. Women, ladies, the most important contribution to this world is raising children. The most important way to change the world is raising children. Look at our society today. What's wrong with our country, society-wise? And the people and what their kids and all that they've grown up and doing the things they do or whatever. What kind of kids were these? Latchkey kids? Parents that were not disciplined? Teachers? You know what I'm talking about. They send them to school to be raised. They don't even have parents. A lot of them don't even have husbands in the home. Where's our society breaking down? It's starting right there. The most important place of influence and change starts right there. And actually, God said that a long time ago. Genesis chapter 3.
Actually,
Yes.
works for the state of the investigator, children's services. And she said what is really sad, and they do it quite often. They try, if they remove the child, they try to replace it with a family member. But she said that they have instances where they can't place it with a family member because none of them are without records, jail terms, that sort of thing, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. They can't find a placement because of that.
Because of that.
And that's such a...
It's normally not just one little family, it's the extended family, and then you turn around and take that from this other extended family with this other kid that sits next to him in class, the kid next to him in class, the kid, where does it stop? Look around. Rapidly changing. Us that are a little older, we're rapidly seeing it change and the ramification of those things. All right, next week we're going to take a look at John Mark.